Here's transparency. I am not a patient person. Like, I hide it well. At least I convince myself I hide it well. But I'm not a super patient person. Like, one of the areas that showed up is I used to take guitar lessons with my father-in-law. This is years ago, right? I sat down with a guitar and I would start playing, and I realized this hand doesn't want to do something that this hand's not doing. And they function differently on a guitar. And it was really hard for me. So I took a few lessons, and then I quit. I quit because I wasn't seeing any growth. I was like, I can't sit down and actually make a guitar sound like it makes music. I can't do that. My son, on the other hand, started taking lessons online with my father-in-law. And when he started that first day, I remember him coming into my office, like his fingertips were bleeding from the strings. And he was in pain. I was like, there's no way this kid's gonna learn to play guitar. You know what? He sits down now, he can play music. Like, he's still growing, but he sits down, I can tell you what song he's playing. The difference between my son and I is that I bailed, I quit when I wasn't seeing progress. My son stuck it out, and now he's seeing the benefits of sticking it out. Because I wanna show you something. This is the valley of disappointment, we call it. Like, this is how we think about our growth. We think that over our time and results, there's a direct correlation to them. We think that growth happens like this. That's how it's gonna grow. Like, we're gonna put in an hour, we're gonna see a benefit, the next hour, the same benefit and the same growth, and it's gonna happen over time. But the truth of the matter is, here's what growth actually looks like. That's what growth actually looks like. And we call this the valley of disappointment. This is where we get frustrated because we're not seeing the results of our time that we actually wanted to. So for me, I got to about right here, and I was like, man, I expect this kind of growth, and I bailed. I ran away. I'm like, I'm not playing guitar. Like, I'm not learning how to play music. My son, on the other hand, is somewhere probably here now, where he's actually seeing the benefit. He can actually learn things a little bit quicker because he's stuck with it through the valley of disappointment. What many of us do is we begin to enter into some sort of change. Some of you started reading the Bible in a year in 2024. You got a couple weeks into it, and you weren't seeing the benefits you thought you were going to see, so you stopped. I want to let it set for a second, because what happened for you is you found yourself in the valley of disappointment and you walked away. Here's what I want to encourage you. Don't quit. Don't allow the frustration here to keep you from what God has for you here. Don't quit, because the change will happen. It doesn't tend to happen the way that we want it to, or as quickly as we desire for it to. Could you imagine if the disciples bailed? I mean, think about the disciples. They begin to follow after Jesus. And while the gospel is a story about Jesus, there is an underlying story about the disciples and their growth. Like, time and time again, they fail, they stumble, they fail to understand what Jesus is doing. Jesus gets frustrated with them, and time again it happens. What we see is their growth. You know what happens in the book of Acts, though? The disciples become apostles. You know what the difference between a disciple and an apostle is? A disciple is a follower of Jesus. An apostle is one who is sent out to proclaim and share the good news of Jesus. Like, the disciples didn't get there in a day. They didn't get there in a week or a month. It took them 3 years to get there. It took them time, and it took them growth. But if they bailed, they would have never become apostles. It took time for the disciples to grow, and it will take time for you to grow as well. Do not give up. The change will come. Do not let the frustration here keep you from what God has for you here.